Hello friends, welcome to these theoretical sessions on transmission line protection series. In today's session we will discuss about the impact of series compensated transmission line on the performance of distance protection relays. Basically we have already covered some 4 or 5 theoretical sessions on various aspects of distance protection relays. After that we have moved to the practical implementations of Siemens Ciprotec 4 series distance protection relay, that is 7SA522, using Dixie software. And now we are once again back to our theoretical session. The purpose of starting this theoretical session on series compensated lines and its impact on distance protection relay is that while discussing on the various settings of distance protection relay using Dixie software, there were some settings. To understand those settings, you need to have the basic idea of this series compensated transmission line. And now, since we have already covered 4 or 5 sessions on both theoretical aspects and practical aspects, so you are much more aware that it is always better to understand the theoretical concepts before moving to the practical aspects, because once you are fully aware about the different settings or the different concepts, theoretical concepts, then you will be in a better position to implement those practical settings using the theoretical concept that you have already learned previously. Now, in this session, the materials that are being used, or the slides basically, are prepared from two of the sources. One, the Professor A.K. Pradhan from IIT Kharagpur. Some of the slides has been directly lifted from his sessions, and some other slides has been lifted from the N.G. Hingorani books on fact controller. Now, these concepts are then explained by my own methods using some of the concepts that I have learned throughout my careers, and now by combining all these three things, hopefully I will be able to explain you the various aspects of series compensated transmission lines. What are the impacts of uh, series capacitors on the power flow of a transmission line? What are the impacts of series capacitors on power system stability, as well as the different components which are used for the protection of series capacitors like MOV, spark gap, and bypass breaker? What additional challenges these equipment poses on the distance protection relay? Those all things will be discussed in this particular session. So hopefully at the end of this session you will be in a much better position to analyze the impact of series compensated lines on the distance protection relay challenges. Now, some of the concepts I have already explained in the session 1, 2, 3 and 4. So if you want to revise those concepts, then you must go to the playlist, and all those videos are available in Hindi as well as English. So as per your convenience you can go to any session, and then as per your convenient language you select that particular session and revise those sessions, so that you will be in a better position to understand the concepts that are being explained in this particular session. Now, without wasting further time, let us start with this session. About the impact of series compensation on distance protection relays. First of all, we will discuss why the series capacitors are used on the transmission lines. What are the effect of series compensation on the transmission line performance? What are the various protection systems used for the protection of this series capacitor itself? And afterward, we will see this combined effect of the protection systems of the capacitors and the capacitor itself on distance protection relaying. Basically, we will discuss about the concepts of current and voltage inversion and the reach settings on of distance protection relay in case of series compensated transmission line. So first of all, let us start with the basic concepts of series capacitors on a transmission line. So this is a single line diagram of a very simple system in which there are two buses, bus M and N, and a series capacitor is installed on bus M. Now R plus JXL is the impedance of the transmission lines connecting between the bus M and N, minus times JXC is your capacitive reactance of the series capacitor installed at bus M. Now, why series capacitors are used on a transmission lines? So basically it is used for to increase the power transmission and improve system stability. And now we will see how it is done. So basically in a AC system, suppose this is a simple AC system consisting of two bus and bus M and bus N, and suppose this is your sending end and this is your receiving end. The transmission line connecting between these two buses has the reactance XL. So the total power transfer from bus M to bus N will be Vs VR divided by XL sine delta, where delta is the angle difference between the voltages at two bus. Vs and Vr is basically your sending end and receiving end voltage, and XL is the reactance of the transmission line connecting between these two buses. So now if you want to increase your power, this P, what you can do? You can either increase your Vs or Vr. Second option is that you can increase delta, and the third option is that you can reduce XL or simply reduce X. So if you want to increase this Vs and Vr, basically what does this means is that you have to increase your voltage level. That means either a 400 kV line is now upgraded to 765 kV system, and that is a very costlier approach. So this cannot be done for this our purpose, because we are considering a 400 kV line or a 765 kV lines. Already a line is already constructed and you want to increase the power transmission through that line, so you cannot increase this Vs and Vr. The second thing is, now you can increase delta, but this delta has a limitation, because you cannot increase delta beyond a certain point. If you increase delta beyond a certain point, then you will compromise with your stability, and we will discuss about this power system stability in some separate video. Now last thing that we can do is we can reduce this series reactance of the transmission line. So how we can reduce this X? We can reduce this X by either paralleling one more X. That means you already have this XL. If you parallel one more XL over here, so you can reduce effectively this XL by 2, and then your power transmission will increase. And basically this is simply your, we are using this thing, this is simply your construction of second line, and this is called double circuit transmission line. So again, if you construct your double circuit transmission line, then there will be additional cost involved with this double circuit transmission line. The first thing is cost involved. Second, your time involved will be high. And third, the construction of another transmission line will impose a lot of ROW issues. And so this is again not advisable. If you have the option to increase power transmission through some other method, then this is not advisable. Generally what we can do is, we know the transmission line reactance over here is XL. So if we connect anything in series with this inductor, any capacitor, then definitely this XL will reduce. Suppose this is your simple transmission line, now this is your XL, and if you connect a capacitor over here, so the reactance of this is XL, and this will be minus times JXC. So your total impedance now up to this point, total reactance in fact will reduce. So this will becomes now XL minus XC, and once this becomes XL minus XC, so your total X, which is equals to XL minus XC, it will reduce. So once your X reduces, your power flow increases. So the series capacitor, when used in a transmission line, it increases your power transmission. Why? Because series capacitors on a transmission line generally reduces the reactance, and hence it increases your power transmission capacity. Now comes the second thing. If you see over here, now the second thing is stated here, that the series capacitor increases the power transmission as well as it improves the system stability. Basically we will discuss in details about this power system stability in some separate session, but for conceptual clarity we will discuss in brief how this series capacitor improves your system stability. So let us see. So now we will see how series capacitor improves your power system stability. Basically we will discuss about the stability in greater details during our theoretical sessions on power system stability. But in this session, we will discuss in brief how this system stability will be improved by series compensated transmission lines. So again, we know if this is your sending end and this is receiving end, this is Vs and this is Vr, and the total reactance of transmission line between these 2 points is suppose X. So your power will be Vs Vr by X sine delta. And now if you introduce some series capacitor, suppose at this point one series capacitor is introduced with reactance minus times jxc. So now if suppose the without series capacitor your power is P1, with series capacitor your power P2, which will be equals to Vs Vr divided by X sine delta, and now this X is equals to XL minus XC, and because of this XL minus XC, this will be of lower magnitude, so your power P2 will be of higher magnitude. So now we will see what this means in terms of stability. This is your power angle curve. So on this side this is power, and suppose this is your power P1, which is without series compensation. This is your power P2, which is just with series compensation. Now suppose this is the initial operating point, which is delta 1. So at this point this is your 2 power. This suppose is the magnitude of power P1 without series capacitor. This is the magnitude of power P2 with series compensation, and this is your basically this is your delta 1. Now suppose we shift our operation to delta 2, and this is your delta 2. So at this point if you see, this is your P1 again, this was P1 1, suppose this was P1 2, and this is your P2 2, this was P2 1. So now if you see this area, for the same delta or for the same angle, your margin here will be higher as compared to this margin. So in terms of delta, if what we can see say is that you get a higher margin of power for your delta. That means for the same angle variation, the amount of power that can be transferred or that can be, or the load that can be shedded will be higher, and that this improves your power system stability, and we will discuss in details about these concepts during our separate session on power system stability. So now this next thing is that it enhances the voltage control. We will discuss in detail about these things again. It increases your flexible power control. The capacitors may be installed at one end of the line. So your capacitor can be installed at one end of the line, at both end of the line. So you can install your capacitors at both end or at midline. You can install your capacitor even at the midline also. But generally the capacitors are installed either at the one end, that means either at end M or at end N, because if you install at mid of the line, you have to construct a separate small substation for that series capacitor itself. Now the ratio XC by XL is called percentage compensation, and generally the impedance value of a series capacitor is typically between 25% and 75% of the line impedance. Now up to this point, we have understand why the series capacitors are used. Basically, the series capacitors are used to improve your power transmission on a same single circuit transmission line or double circuit lines. You can improve the power transmission. And secondly, because of this series capacitor, your power system stability also improves. Voltage control will also improve. So the series capacitors are basically used for 2 or 3 basic purposes. First, it improves your power transmission. Second, it improves the system stability, and third, it improves the voltage control. Now if you see in this slide, what is happening over here is that this is exactly the same single line diagram that I was using in the last page, or if you see here, This is exactly the same single line diagram. But now suppose there is a fault beyond your capacitor. So if there is a fault at some point, suppose F, now because of this series capacitor, what happens is that your total reactance up to the fault point reduces. So once total reactance up to the fault point reduces, the fault current will increase. So now if there is any fault beyond capacitor, so due to this reduced reactance of the faulted path, the fault current will be very high, and because of this high fault current, it happens that the voltage across the capacitor becomes high. And now to protect those capacitors, because all capacitors will be designed to withstand certain voltage limits. So suppose the capacitor is designed to withstand 50 kV or 60 kV. So now if the voltage increases beyond 50 kV or beyond 60 kV, then you have to protect those capacitors. And to protect those capacitors or from those high voltages, MOV is used, and MOV is basically your metal oxide varistor, which is a non-linear resistance, and it protects the capacitor when the voltage across this capacitor increases beyond the rated limit. And now we will discuss how MOV comes into picture, how MOV protects your series capacitors, and finally what are the effect of spark gap, why a spark gap and bypass breakers are used. So now to understand the effect of MOV, why MOV is used, basically if you see here, this was your transmission line. On this transmission line, suppose we are using a series capacitor over here. So now this is sending end voltage, this is receiving end voltage, this is the total reactance of the transmission line, which is X, and suppose this is J times XL, and this is your reactance of the series capacitors, which is minus times JXC, and your total power transferred P is equals to VS VR divided by J, or if you divided by XL minus XC, which is X times sine delta. So this we already know. Now if you see how these series capacitors are connected, basically this is your series capacitors. If you see only the capacitor, now this capacitor will have some reactance due to this capacitance. So your reactance XC will be 1 by omega C. And now once the current flows through this capacitor, because these capacitors are connected in series, so this is your normal suppose current. So now when this current is flowing through these capacitors, the voltage drop across the capacitor will be I times XC. So now if you suppose this XC is your suppose 50 ohm, and under normal circumstances, suppose your rated current or the power flow through the transmission line suppose varies from 100 ampere to 1 kilo ampere. That means the voltage across your series capacitor will be in case the current is flowing as 100 ampere, so 100 into 50, that means 5 kV. And in case your current flowing is 1 kilo ampere, so in that case capacitor voltage across the capacitor will be 50 kV. So now suppose your capacitors are rated for 45 kV, or your capacitors are designed for 50 kV. So up to this 50 kV there is no problem. Even if your rated current is flowing through the transmission line, the voltage developed across the capacitor will be 50 kV only, and these capacitors are able to withstand these voltages. But now in case of fault, we have already seen, because of these capacitors, if there is any fault beyond this capacitor, suppose there is a fault at this point, so now what happens, your fault current IF will have a very high magnitude. So now this high magnitude of fault current will increase the voltage across the capacitors to a very high limit. Suppose this fault current IF is suppose 10 kilo ampere. Now in this case of 10 kilo ampere, your total voltage across the capacitor will be 500 kV. And now surely if your capacitors are designed for suppose 50 kV, so the capacitors will fail. So we don't want our capacitors to fail. So what we can do is that we can install a device in parallel with this capacitor, which can bypass the excess current through this device itself. So now suppose your normal current, when this normal current is flowing, then no current should flow through this path, because in that case capacitor can safely withstand these voltages. But once the current increases, once there is a fault, so the current will increase, and due to this increased current, now you want that your current must be diverted through this device. So once you want your current to be diverted to this device, that means you want to have a device which operates whenever the voltage across this capacitor increases beyond its rated voltage of suppose 50 kV. So a device which is used for this purpose is called MOV, and MOV is basically your metal oxide varistor, and this MOV is basically a non-linear resistor. This MOV is a non-linear resistor, and it will comes into picture only during the high fault current, because in case of high fault current it will offer a low resistive path, and now your current will be diverted through this path and your capacitor will be saved. So this MOV is used to protect the capacitor from damage during the high fault current. Now since this MOV itself is a resistance, so if your MOV itself is a resistance, so now what happens, because of this flow of current through MOV have some resistance R. Now current is flowing through MOV, so your I square R and T, that means the energy which is generated due to flow of this current through the MOV will keep on increasing over time, and the temperature of the MOV will keep on increasing. So once the temperature of the MOV will keep on increasing, there might happen it might happen that after some times the MOV might fail. So you cannot allow this fault current to continue to flow this MOV for a higher duration, or for suppose more than 1 second, 2 second period. So now what we want is that we want to have a device which can bypass this MOV once there is once the MOV temperature reaches certain value. So this is one of the method in which once your MOV temperature reaches certain value, this is one method. Or second, if the accumulated energy across accumulated energy, this is again the same thing. If the accumulated energy in the MOV is crosses the rated limit, then some additional device must trigger, and that additional device is called a spark gap. So your protection system will issue a triggering command to a spark gap, and a spark gap will trigger. So once a spark gap trigger, it bypasses the MOV, and now the current will continue to flow through this spark gap. But your current cannot flow through this spark gap for an infinite duration or for a longer duration, because then in that case a spark gap might fail. So to protect those spark gap, a breaker is used over here, and this breaker is called bypass breaker. So this completes the complete scheme of series capacitor. So now we can see basically how this scheme is made. So if you see here, the basic schemes will be like this. This is my series capacitor. To protect this series capacitor, an MOV is used over here. This is MOV. To protect this MOV, your spark gaps are used. This is a spark gap. And finally, to protect the complete scheme, or to protect the capacitors completely, this your bypass breaker is used. This is your bypass CB. And now this is the complete, this is your current I. This will be one end of the transmission line. This is bus M, suppose. This is bus N, and this is the complete platform of your series compensation or series capacitors. So basically what we see over here is that the point of interest for us is these two things, this MOV and your series capacitor. And what happens is that for a higher value of current, for fault current of higher magnitudes, MOV will come into picture, MOV will come into picture. But for a lower magnitude of fault current, MOV might not operate. So for lower magnitude of current, MOV might not operate. That means for higher magnitude of current, generally MOV comes into picture and you will have these two components in series. That means series capacitors plus MOV, and there will have a different types of effects during this condition, different types of effect during this condition, as compared to the case in which there is a low fault current. So in case of low fault current, MOV will not come into picture, and now only series capacitor will remain into service, and this will have a different kinds of effect. So now these different kinds of effect during the low fault current and high fault current causes a problem in distance protection relays, and these problems are basically related with the directionality. That means your forward fault might be detected by a relay as a reverse direction fault, or it might affect your zone reach. And the two types of effect that is generally observed due to these series capacitors are, firstly, current inversion, and second is the voltage inversion. So now we will discuss in details about this current and voltage inversion. So let us begin with current and voltage. So basically this I have already explained. I will read this slide once again for the better concept. This I have basically this SLD I have already explained why these capacitors, why MOV is connected in parallel with capacitor, why a spark gap is connected in parallel with MOV, and why finally the bypass breakers are connected. Basically the MOV, when there is a fault beyond capacitor C, the reduced reactance of faulted path, and in that case your fault current will be very high, so voltage across capacitor becomes high and immediately MOV protects the capacitor. Now a spark gap, when the temperature of MOV exceeds beyond a threshold, a spark gap bypasses MOV and C, that means capacitor, followed by the breaker, and finally bypass breaker will come into picture, and this complete scheme I have already explained to you. Now what are the effects of this series compensation on distance protection? First, for low current faults, I have already explained that MOV may not operate, and in that case only capacitor will remain into service, and that poses your problem of current inversion, voltage inversion, as well as reach problems. So equivalent reactance will change depending upon whether MOV is in service or MOV is out of service, but your line protection scheme must perform properly with and without this reach capacitor in the fault loop. Another problem is due to your line inductance and the series capacitor capacitance, there will be some subharmonic frequency oscillations, and these frequency oscillations affect the phasor estimations, and we will discuss about the phasor estimation in some separate video while discussing about the basics of numerical technologies. When we will discuss about the basics of numerical technology, at that point of time we will discuss how the phasors are estimated, what are the different filters, how the filters and how the digital signal processings are done inside the numerical protective relays, and finally the series capacitor poses the problem for directional and distance relays. So now we will discuss how these problems are encountered. First, the current inversion. Now if you see here, this is the same single line diagram that I have already explained to you. Now in this diagram, this Vs with Jxs is the source behind this bus M with its reactance Xs. R is the relay which is installed at bus M, minus Jxc is the reactance of the series capacitor which is installed at bus M. XLF is the inductance or the reactance up to the fault point of the transmission line. Now this same single line diagram is drawn on this network diagram, the single line network diagram for the analysis purpose, and if you see this Vs with Jxs is simply your voltage, and this Xs is the source behind this is the source behind this bus M, minus times Jxc is your capacitive reactance, and Jxlf is your reactance of the transmission line up to the fault point. So the current through the relay at bus M, what will the current? It will be Vs divided by Jxs minus Jxc plus Jxlf. That means IR is equals to Vs divided by Xs plus Xlf minus Xc. Now what are the problems now with this? So if you analyze this equation clearly, so what you see is that in case your Xs plus Xlf is greater than Xc, that means in that case your IR will lag with Vs. But in case Xc is greater than Xs plus Xlf, in that case your IR will lead Vs. So what are the problems with this? So first of all, we will see what are the problems associated with this. So now if we see, this is our current equation. IR is equals to VR divided by JXS plus XLF minus XC. Now if you know, in case of a transmission line, suppose this is a transmission line. So your transmission line reactance will be generally inductive in nature. And if you know, this is your VS, this is VR, and this current is flowing through this transmission line. So generally, if there is any fault at any point, suppose this is your fault, and suppose the relay is installed at this point. So if this relay sees any voltage and current for its operation, so generally if this is your voltage V, then for the forward fault your current must lag this voltage for the forward fault. Why? Because if your fault is in the forward direction, so generally the fault loop will encounter the line reactance, and line reactance is inductive in nature. So that means your for forward fault, voltage will lead the current or current will lag the voltage. So for forward fault, all numerical relay works on this method only. It will calculate its phasor from the data, and now it compares voltage and current phasor, and if current lags behind the voltage, current lags voltage, then it detects it as a forward fault. Now in our case, what happens here is that in case your XC is greater than XS plus XLF, in case XC is greater than XC plus XLF, then what happens? Then your IR will leads VR, and this IR and VR is the current and voltage available measured by this relay. So now in this case what happens is that this is your VR and this is your IR measured by this relay. Because of this series capacitor, it measures this current now in the forward direction. So once it measures the current current is now leading the voltage, so the relay will declare this fault as a reverse fault instead of a forward fault. So the directionality is compromised. That means in case your XC is greater than XLF plus XS, your current will be inverted. So what are the other problems associated with current inversion? If you now see in this slide, this Vs is your voltage, this source voltage, and I pre is the pre-fault current. Now the pre-fault voltage of this bus M will be Vs minus Is times Jxs. So now Vs minus I times Jxs. Vs is this, I pre is lagging behind this Vs because of this inductive nature. So your total current I pre minus times J times Xs. Why J times Xs minus times? Because Vs minus J I Xs IR is equals to your VR. So now this is Vs minus times J Xs IR, and how you can draw that? This is I pre. So we will draw a phasor at 90-degree angle on this I pre multiplied with JXS, and we will add these to Vs, and now the voltage obtained will be V pre. So this is the pre-fault voltage. Now during fault and with our conditions, this condition in which your XC is greater than XLF plus XS, what happens is now your current direction reverses. So current inversion occurs, and in that case now if you see your Vs, so your Vs now will be this, and this is your IXS will be this I times this, and IXS if you now draw at this point, so your fault voltage will be VRF, and which is more than this pre-fault voltage. So the another problem associated with current inversion is that your bus voltage becomes more than the pre-fault bus voltage. So the current inversion poses the problem on directionality of the relay, and as well as it increases the fault voltage as compared to the pre-fault voltage. The second problem is your voltage inversion. Now if you see here, this is again the same diagram, and now I have already calculated in the last slide this IR is equals to Vs divided by Jxs plus XLF minus Xc. Now the voltage measured by the relay at this location, that is VR is equals to JXLF minus XC times IR. That means IR into JXLF minus XC, and I have put this value of IR from this equation. So this VR becomes Vs times JXLF minus XC divided by JXS plus XLF minus XC. And now in this case, what happens is that if your XC is greater than XLF, and at the same time XLF plus XS is greater than XC, then your voltage will be inverted. Again, this will have the same problems. So now XC is greater than XLF, so your voltage, generally your voltage must be on this side. This we have already explained in the earlier slide, that this is your pre-fault current, this is the pre-fault voltage, Vs minus JXSIR pre, this is your pre-fault voltage. Now, and during the fault, what happens, your voltage direction reverses. Once voltage direction reverses, again it is the same case. So the current is now leading the voltage, and your directional relay will detect this forward fault as a reverse fault. But now condition is that when these conditions of Xc greater than XLF will be encountered in real life, the Xc greater than XLF will comes only in case of three-phase fault. Why? Because in case of single phase fault, what happens is that your positive sequence, negative sequence and zero sequence impedances are connected in series. That means your positive sequence impedance, negative sequence impedance plus zero sequence impedance, this will have connected in series, so total impedance will be of higher magnitude, and in that case XLF generally is greater than XC, and those voltage and current inversion generally doesn't take place. But in case of a three-phase closed-in faults, now XC will be more than XLF, and the directionality of the relay will be improper. So voltage inversion results in voltage phase angle more than 90 degree caused by the series capacitor during a fault. The another problem, what are the challenges for distance relay in the presence of series capacitor? I have already explained in the earlier slide that the impedance of the protected line is modified by series capacitor and varies depending on the state of spark gap and MOV conduction. Second thing, the apparent impedance even moves to fourth quadrant in the RX plane during inversion, and we will discuss it in the next slide. And your relay problem is more prominent for low current faults. Why the relay problem is more prominent for low current faults? Because for the low current magnitude, MOV will not be bypassed and your series capacitor will remain in service, and that will reduce the total impedance measured by the relay. So now this is your simple equivalent circuit, and if you see in this equivalent circuit, now this is the current which is flowing through the series capacitors, the normal conditions. Now once the current increases beyond a certain value, in that case some of the current will be diverted to MOV, and this IMOV is the current flowing through this MOV. So during MOV operation, what happens is that some current will be flowing through MOV and some current will be flowing through the capacitor. So that means there is a series on a series compensated line, you can say that reactance, that is the capacitive reactance, and the resistive effect of MOV will be present during these conditions. However, when the fault current magnitude is very high, in that case series capacitor will be bypassed and most of the current will flow through MOV only. That means in that conditions the effect will be purely resistive. However, for the low current faults, MOV will not come into picture and the effect will be purely capacitive. This I have already explained. If you want to know about these characteristics in detail, then please refer the first session, which is available in English as well as in Hindi as lecture 1, and in that lecture 1 you just go through the different characteristics and the effect of fault resistance in the second lectures as well. Then you will be able to understand why this impedance, this is the actual impedance basically, which will be at some angle depending upon the line angle. Now if your fault is on this transmission line without any fault resistance, the actual impedance measured by the line will be this, and basically any characteristics will cover this impedance. But once the fault involves resistance due to your arc resistance or tower footing resistance or due to any other factor, in that case what happens is that now the actual impedance measured by the relay will be at some other location. So for high current fault, what we see is that capacitor will be bypassed and your MOV will only be in service. So high current fault is generally like this: actual impedance plus some fault resistance plus this MOV resistance, of course. So now the impedance locus will be at this point. However, at the for the low current faults, what happens is that your MOV will not be bypassed and your total impedance will reduce and the locus will be at some other point this. So for any other location, that is for the in between faults or the fault current which the magnitude is not very high, both MOV and series capacitor will remain in service. Some current will be flowing through MOV, some current will be flowing through capacitors, and your total impedance measured by the relay will be in this between these 2 points. And in that condition, it might happen that if you are using suppose more characteristics or quadrilateral characteristic, then your relay might see a zone 1 fault in zone 2 and relay might not operate, or it might also happen that the relay at the other end might see a zone 2 fault in zone 1 and it might operate incorrectly. So we will see in greater details about this reach settings, how the zone 2 and zone 1 reaches are reduced, why the reach settings are set like 60% in case of series compensated lines only, or why the zone 1 operation time delay operations are delayed in case of non-receipt of carrier, why POTT schemes are used in case of series capacitor. That we will discuss in some separate sessions. For this session we will keep up to this point only. I hope that the basics of this series compensations and its effects on the series compensated transmission lines, of the effects of the series compensated line on the distance protections, I hope it is clear up to this point. So we will meet again with some separate topics. Thank you. So thank you friends. In this session we have discussed about the various concepts related to series compensated transmission line and its impact on the performance of distance protection relay. Basically we have studied about the current inversion, voltage inversion, and the impact of high fault current and low fault current on the MOV operation, and what happens when the MOV operates and bypasses the capacitor, and what happens when the MOV doesn't operates and doesn't bypass the capacitors, what are its impact on the zones or various zones, as well as we have discussed about the impact of series capacitor on the power flow, on power system stability, and the various protective devices which are used for bypassing these capacitors like MOV, spark gap bypass breakers. We have discussed about these things, and hopefully every concept which I explained in this session is clear to you, and if not, then please revise this session as many times as possible. And once you understand these concepts thoroughly, then during the sessions on the practical concepts like the Dixie's or Ciprotec 4, which we have already covered, and in due course of time we will discuss about the MICOM P444 relay and its configuration using S1 Agile. Likewise, we will discuss about REL670 and its configuration using PCM software. During those times, it will be very beneficial if you know the theoretical concepts behind those things. Because once you understand the theoretical concept, then the practical implementation becomes very easy. If you don't know about the theoretical concept, then the practical implementation is not that much easy, but it becomes a very slow and lethargic process. So kindly devote some time to understand these theoretical concepts, and once you are completely familiar with these theoretical concepts, then I am sure that the practical implementation and the practical understanding of various relays, various numerical relays will be very easy. So we will keep up to this point in this session, and in the next session we will come back with some other theoretical concept. Till then, bye bye, enjoy.